love about tonight's show is that whether you have a puppy, brand new puppy, whether you have an adult dog, maybe you've got a rescue dog, doesn't matter what the age is. Maybe you've just decided that it's time. I've got to start.
Maybe you like cats.
Maybe.
I'm just kidding.
Well, that has nothing to do with tonight's show. Maybe you do like cats, but maybe
We like cats too.
Maybe you've got a dog that you have, something's happened. You've gotten frustrated enough with the walking. You've gotten frustrated enough with all the jumping up that you're like, it's time to make a change. It's time for me to do something about it. Tonight's show is going to help you regardless of your training situation, regardless of what stage of training you're at. Tonight's show is for you. We're going to talk about the 5 common training mistakes that new dog owners make. And maybe this is like your second dog and you're like, well, everything works so well.
I'll just do everything I did with the first one.
That's right. You try to do all the same things and they're not working. So what we need to do is talk about some of the specifics, some of the things that you do wrong, because they will set you back so much more than the little things that you're doing right, that we need to isolate that and fix them for you. So, with no further ado, I can't wait to hear the bark. I'm Ken Steepe.
I'm Kayl McCann.
Welcome back to McCann Dogs.
Lexi says, I love cats.
Genevieve Lalibert is a Heart Dog supporter. Thanks for joining us here, Genevieve. It's very cool of you to join the Heart Dogs. So, we're going to talk about 5 common mistakes. Now, if you guys don't know, the way I got to McCann Dogs was I had a 2-year-old black lab. She was an absolute wild thing for walking specifically, but all sorts of other behaviors. I mean, the list is long. But I went to my vet and he said, Ken, I can hardly even assess her. You need to go over here to McCann Dogs. And I reluctantly went. And I watched my first lesson 1 and it was all exciting. And I started to train Deegan, my black lab. And I started to see some change. And what got me to the point where I started to see some changes, some instruction from the instructors. They told me some of the mistakes I was making. So listen, you got to stop doing this thing. Listen, this part of your training is really important. Focus on it. And that's the experience that I want to give you here tonight in the show. So we're going to talk about some of those really common mistakes that new dog owners make. And it's really going to, believe me, this is like impactful stuff. I really like these shows because you can literally sit down with us until train station's over and then take these skills and start working with your dog to see some change. And that's what I love, honestly, about the reach and power of this channel.
Absolutely.
I see lots of new names in the chat. If this is your first time here, I want you to drop new in the chat. I see lots of conversation, great comments, and some good questions. But let us know if this is your first time here because we can kind of change the way we deliver some of the content. And while you're checking out the chat, if you see some names there, the names are in blue. They'll have a little wrench next to them. And if the name's in blue, they're part of the McCann Dogs crew. I can see Instructor Alexis, Instructor Robbie, Dan, the moderator man's already dropping links for you guys. Lots of links looting, we call them. And he'll be there helping you guys out and giving you...
lots of new people.
Oh, yeah, tons of new people.
Wow.
Morgan.
Welcome, everybody.
Lindsay Connor, or Connor Lindsay.
Holy.
Confused Frog 9. That's a great name. Lisa Town. Trust lots of new people here with us in the train station.
Wow,
Scooter
that's
Dog.
great.
Scooter Dog, one of our Heart Dog supporters. Help, my dog walks well in the neighborhood, seeing dogs across the street, but, this is it's cliffhanger question.
But I think we could probably fill in the blanks.
I think so. Genevieve, the other Heart Dog supporter that's with us tonight, new from Ottawa. Thanks for joining us. So if this is your first train station here, then there's something that we do every single time. And, number one, we introduce our moderators. That's part and parcel of what goes on here. But another thing we do that I really enjoy is we like to find out where you're joining us from. I love going back, and actually last time was really neat because there was a couple of people from places all over the world that I'd never heard of before. Also, a couple of places like towns in America that I had never ever heard of, like little small towns and stuff.
There's a lot of towns in America.
Which is cool, yeah. So I got to check out where those were from. But let us know where you're joining us here in the train station from. I just saw myself in the monitor, and I look like a 90s sitcom dad.
Yeah.
I need a haircut, and I need to shave, and I feel like...
You're right.
I feel like I'd be asking about, like, come here, champ, why don't you bring your pogo ball over here and we can watch the California Raisins cartoon together.
What are you talking about?
I guess you're too young for that.
The California Raisins? No, I think I remember them.
Okay. All right.
I don't know,
I just feel like that's how I look.
Was it a show?
A
band?
Well, it was both, I guess. I mean, they were little animated characters, but brought to you by the California
like
Raisin
a cartoon?
Committee. Yeah.
Oh. Do they have headbands?
I think they did. I don't really remember. Know. But either way, it's time for a haircut for Ken.
Yeah. We'll get back to dog training here.
So, people joining us from pretty cool places. I see Moncton, New Brunswick, Edmonton, Charlotte, North Carolina, Chicago, Vancouver, Nashville, Arkansas, New from Montreal. Thanks for joining us, Confused Frog. Jade joining us from Perth, Australia, Brooklyn, New York, Idaho, San Francisco, California. Vanessa's joining us from Singapore. Aloha, cool. Oregon. New from the Philippines is Carl. Hannah from upstate New York, Loudon, New Hampshire, San Diego, Bismarck, North Dakota, originally Texas. Well, I'm glad you're able to join us here, Brittany. London, Ontario is Amanda coming at us. Mary Jane Cavanaugh from London, Ontario. New Orleans, Washington, D.C. Oh, my goodness. Fergus, Ontario. B-Max joined us from Disney World. What are you doing? Yeah, now is the time to be out. What's that street?
I hope you're at the top of Tower of Terror right now.
That's a fun thing to say.
Yeah.
Hope you're at the top of Tower of Terror.
The best ride there.
Yeah, it's a pretty great ride.
Yep.
Juan from Coquitlam. I see Virginia. Actually, in our moderating team just sent me a message showing the California Raisins.
Do they have any headbands?
These guys don't, but I'll see if I can actually save that, and then I can show everybody what we're talking about. We need to get into some of the content here, though. We'll be bringing up lots of interesting conversation tonight, and we can dive a little bit more into who and what the California Raisins are. But I thank you guys for joining us. Maybe you've stumbled across the stream and you're like, who on earth are these blue-shirted, 90s haired?
Do they know anything about dogs, or do they just talk about old cartoons?
Maybe a little introduction is appropriate.
Yes. My name is Kayl McCann, and McCann Dogs is my family's business. My parents started it 40 years ago now, actually, a little over 40 years ago. And the focus of our training facility and our training is to work on teaching people to have well-behaved four-legged family members. We do lots of high-level sport training and things like that as well. But the main thing that we feel is so important is that dogs get a really good basic understanding of learning, because when your dog is well-trained, you can take them places, you can enjoy them more. Yeah. They enjoy life to the fullest. You can go and do awesome stuff together, and everybody lives long, happy lives together. So that's sort of the point. We do have an in-house facility in Flamborough. We're located in Ontario, Canada. And then we also have online students from over 54 countries all over the world.
Kayl's so humble. Yeah. Kayl's so humble because what's so incredible about McCann Dogs is there's a number of trainers and some incredible staff. But in that facility, we're helping nearly 500 dogs every single week. Mm-hmm. Nearly 500 dog owners to overcome their dog training challenges.
And it's
online,
not just us.
No,
we have a huge team of amazing dog trainers.
And nearly 1,000 online students every week. Yeah. So it's so cool, and I'm so proud to be a part of McCann Dogs. Now, before we go any further, I feel like I need to share this. This is the California Raisins. That is.
So no headbands.
No.
But okay. No. I feel like I recognize that. I don't know why.
The first thing we need to talk about before we come completely off the tracks, although it is the train station, and maybe this is your first time on the train station, you'll never see another live stream where there's so much tooting. Mistake number one that people are making comes down to timing. And so often we hear people say, oh, well, he only listens when I have food. Or,
when there's no distractions.
That's right. Absolutely.
I'm in the
that's
house,
a good one.
At home.
He only listens sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, this is a problem with your timing. It could be also location, but timing is so key to this. Mm-hmm. And this was what really helped me. When I first started training using food, I was pretty skeptical. I thought I don't want to become dependent on the food. And then a couple of instructors, Instructor Robbie was actually my first head instructor, who's in the chat tonight. Talk to me about timing. Let's talk a little bit about timing and when you might know that you're making some mistakes.
Yeah, so we can talk specifically about what a dog's learning time frame is, and that is important because if you're not delivering information, both positive and negative, when your dog's doing something wrong versus when your dog's doing something right, it's hard for them to really understand it. But I think the most common thing that people struggle with timing is often people are delivering information to the dog far after the fact. And what happens is the dog does something in a moment. They don't get immediate feedback, which is what they require. They require information within 1 second, but they do their thing. They sit and look up longingly at their owner's face, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe they just had a pee on your carpet, whatever it might be. And the information that I didn't like that, or wow, you're so perfect, comes too far after the fact. And then sometimes it creates some gray area for the dog to figure out what exactly you were upset about, what exactly you loved. And then it's hard for them to replicate that thing. So a lot of people think that dogs learn the way that people do. I could say to Ken, last week on Wednesday at 5:00, when you did this, like, that was really great. He would be able to go back and be like, oh yeah, this happened. Dogs don't think like that. They need repetition of the same thing, consistency, information in the moment, and then that needs to be repeated, as I had just mentioned, for them to actually be able to put things together. So timing is really important. That's sort of the broad thing, but then we can get into specifics as well, because sometimes when people's timing is off, which is usually what happens, is it causes some confusion, or it teaches the dogs to not have very good reliability in listening. And that's I think what most people's problem is. They listen sometimes, they don't listen all the time. And when you look at the person's timing and how they're interacting and communicating with the dog, it's usually off the mark.
Erica, Hard Dog Supporter, dropping 3 hard dogs. Okay, I love this, and I think it's really important.
We have is that like an emoticon?
Yeah, we have our own.
We have our own emoticon?
We do.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Like, is that new?
Not that new. What is important that you talked about there is that there's, in terms of your timing, both for like your reward and for your, I don't want to use the term consequence, but like your timing for redirection, your timing for, giving the dog better information, that's really important. And being off on either side, whether it's showing your treats too early or it's not catching your dog in the act, both really will not allow you to progress in your training. Mm-hmm. We need to talk a little bit about good time. I wonder if this is a good opportunity to head on over to the train station and talk about like show command luring.
Yep, we could do that.
Okay.
You just made me think of something.
Okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
But now I've forgotten.
Oh, great. Okay, do you want to get a demo dog? And we'll try a little bit. I think it'd be good.
I was going to say something good.
Okay. I talked a little bit about whether you are showing treats too early, or you are catch your dog after the fact. Both of those things are going to result.
I'm going to remember in like 10, 15 minutes and be like, oh,
when the show's over. Wait, how do we turn this thing back on?
Yeah. Anyways, I'm sure it'll come back to me. I don't know. It was slightly off topic.
Let's grab a dog, and then we'll just talk a little bit about timing. Now, this is, again, we're going to focus on the timing. You'll notice if you have a dog that only listens when you have treats, then you're probably showing your lure your reward too early. Now, it is definitely possible that you can quickly change that, and then if you reward with good timing, your dog starts to learn that the only thing that's going to get them the reward or the result that they want is from the result that you want. So we're going to talk a little bit about timing and how it's important to make sure that your verbal is then followed by your lure and is then followed by the reward. Those 3 steps are really important, and I think it's important that you guys understand that. Now, we haven't headed over to the train station in a long time, but what I love to do every time is say, let's head on over to the train station.
Okay, so I feel like I'm not very centered to the camera. There we go. I brought Funky out here. Funky is 14, and she's deaf. But she has had lots of training, and she likes to work for food. So I think she actually might be a good demo dog, because she's not going to be able to respond to the verbals. So when we're talking about timing and we're trying to teach our dog to, for example, not become reliable or reliant on food or whatnot. We have to be very careful that we don't then teach our dogs using food as a bribe. So in the initial stages, it's not as important. So if she was just learning something new, I would absolutely have the food present. I would help her move into position if I was teaching sits and downs or even a trick, whatever it might be, teaching her to walk up my side, teaching her to come when she's called. All of that, we love to use food initially or any type of motivator because we want the dog to love what they're doing. We want them to do it right over and over and over again. But where a lot of people struggle is when we go from having the food present where the dog says, I can do everything, I'm so perfect, I love food, to having the food away, and then the dog says, wait a second, where's that reward? I don't think I have to listen anymore. And one of the reasons why people struggle with this is because they have poor timing when they're using food. So I'm going to show you a really simple example. If I was to say to Funky, down, for example, and I had the food on her nose, and while I was saying down, she was nibbling and sniffing the food, and then I lured her into position. She went down. That was pretty good, but she would not learn to lie down, A, on the word, or B, without food, because when I was giving her the cue, which is the important part that I want her to really pay attention to, I have food on her nose. So not only is she not listening to me because she's so focused on the food here, but she's also learning this exercise has to do with food because she puts food on my nose every time she says that word. So if I do this, down, and then I lure her, but again, my food's completely the forefront of the cue there, I'm going to be dependent on it as time goes on. So to change it, what we should do instead is I could show her the food, I could get a little bit of focus, that would be okay, and then I could say, down. And then I could show the food 1 second later. And so she could learn, here's this word down, here's the behavior that my mom wants me to do when she hears that word. And again, this could be done with anything. It could be for any exercise. I'm just using down because it's a really simple one to show you right now. But again, the timing needs to be down, then lure 1 second later. Now that timing of the 1 second is also really important because sometimes this happens. Now that she's deaf, she's going to be so good at this demo, hun. Yeah, so if I said down, and then I lured her with a piece of food, she's going to go, okay, I went, but my timing had so much of a delay between the cue and the stimulus is what we use to help her go into position. She's not going to pair these things together. And this is why the timing is so specific. This is why a lot of people struggle. They allow the dog to be wrong or to not get any information for too long of a period before actually assisting the dog. Or people will do this, down, 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 and then they show the food. So they say down, the dog's not going. They say it again. They say it a third time. They say it a fourth time. Dog's not going. Well, the dog's not going because they're, trying to make it hard on you. They're going because they don't actually understand. There's no dogs basically say, I'm not listening to you, I'm not doing it. They've either learned that that's something that they can do or they don't understand it. So what I don't want to do is keep repeating myself. So again, I'm going to finish the demo with doing proper timing so that's the visual you have in your mind. My food is being removed from the dog, from the picture. I'm going to say the word down, and then 1 second later, I can apply that food reward from there because the goal would be that eventually I could say down and I don't have to show her the food. She's had so many repetitions that she could go on her own. So that's sort of the goal.
Maybe an in-between step, like when you don't have food in your hand, what does that look like? I know she is deaf.
Yeah.
So it's going to change it a little bit, but what might that look like for her if you don't have food in your hand?
I don't understand what you're asking.
So maybe like a lure, just a lure hand, and then the reward comes out to reward her.
Oh, like how to deliver the food? Like, just tell me what you're trying to get me to show.
How would you deliver the food?
Okay.
If it wasn't in your hand?
Okay, I'm confused because it's unrelated to timing.
I know, but I think this is exactly.
Okay, I got you. Our brains were not on the same wavelength there. So if I wanted her to down, and then I was to signal her, and I want to get to the point where I didn't have food in my hands, which she was a really good girl there, in order to help her hold position, I would actually take the food and I would put it in my signal hand to help her hold position. Because if I was to do this, down, signal, and then I fed from this hand, I'm causing her to move out of position. And now she's thinking, well, here's all the rewards, so I'm going to look here. So I'm going to say down, then signal, yes, good girl, she responded without food, then I could use the food as a reward. And that's going to be a nice stepping stone to go from having the food in your hand to eventually not needing the food at all. And then what I thought Ken was getting at is that how you hold your hand is also really important. So if I do a hand signal and I have food in my hand here, and if I hold my hand like this, so my hand's sort of flat with the piece of food, freebie, with the piece of food like sort of tucked underneath, and that's how I signal her. When I don't have food in my hand, I don't all of a sudden want to point or snap and point at the ground. Some dogs might go, I think you might mean this, where like I have dogs that like this means something different than this, which means something different than this. All my right hand, but it's subtle like motion changes. Those are 3 totally different cues for my dogs. So you do want to make sure that you're consistent whether the food's there or not.
Really great. Okay.
Yes, good girl.
Great little demo. And this applies, I mean, Kayl showed you a very specific example because we could, in the train station, we could show you very carefully about timing, show you very carefully about reward with a tight camera shot. But the same thing applies to all of your training. The same thing applies to your sit, to your walking on leash. I mean, you might start with the donkey and carrot routine. I remember
what I was going to say now.
You might start with that food on your dog's nose so that you can at least get some success. But over time, your timing's going to change about when that reward's coming out. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was related to walking on leash because I wanted to give a different example other than something static. So yes, I showed you the down just because it's very simple. But also, like say for example, you were out for a walk with your dog and your dog was, doing any behavior that you really didn't like, jumping and barking at other dogs, picking things up off the sidewalk, whatever it might be. If your timing is off and, you go on 7 walks a day or seven walks in a week, and 6 of those walks your dog is rehearsing jumping and barking at people and picking things up off the floor, and your timing allows the dog to be successful in making those choices, well, you're never going to fix your problem. But if your timing was faster and you were able to anticipate those things happening and you were able to change the course of action for your dog because you have early information, you're going to get an entirely different result from your dog. Most times when people get upset with their dog, it's after several, sometimes minutes of the dog acting inappropriately, and they say, well, I don't like that pulling anymore, or I don't like that barking anymore, but they've just allowed the dog to do it for, a long time and then said, no, I don't like that. Well, I think from your dog's perspective, that's a bit confusing. You let me do it, and other times you tell me I'm not allowed to do it, so, pick one. So dogs need things that are really black and white, so it goes for teaching something new, or it also goes for capturing or persuading behavior for your dog. But if your timing's off, that could be a big reason why you're not seeing results or you're seeing changes in your dog's behavior.
Yeah, and I think this is where you can start to be critical of your timing. You can really be self-aware and think about, okay, what is my timing here? Is my food on my dog's nose? Are they only sitting because I'm holding treats higher in the air? Are they only coming in because I'm shaking a bag of cookies? Yeah. That's bad timing. That's bad dog training. And you need to make a big change there. So now that you're aware of it, you can be a little bit more discreet, but you can also be right on time with those rewards. We often hear from people that say, oh, my dog doesn't like this thing, whether it's a reward of some kind, or my dog only likes toys, or my dog only likes praise. And this may be true to some degree. I'll tell you,
they have preferences sometimes.
That's right. Yeah, your dog will like some things over others. But a big mistake that people make is they don't assess what's valuable to their dog. So, an example of that might be that you go out into, let's say, why would your dog listen to you? What do you have in exchange for your dog giving you some effort? What's that thing?
And it's important to note that, like, when you first get a dog, sometimes puppies will listen really great and they confuse people because they don't have any experience. They don't have any knowledge. They sort of lean into whoever they think is going to protect them and help them because that's how they've just lived the first 8 weeks of their life. Yep. Then things change. And they don't do it because they love you. They don't do it because they want to please you, because they haven't learned about that yet. So it's really important you understand that in order to get your dog to learn to listen to you, you need to use something that they want as an incentive to learn to like to listen to you. Right. Until the act of listening to you is the thing that the dog desires. And that takes a long time for some people. I don't know if that was too deep of an explanation,
I think it was accurate. I think this is where we can have those conversations. We can get a little deeper about dog training here and have a little bit more dynamic conversation, which is fun. But dogs will do what's rewarding. So if you set your dog up to understand that when they put in a little bit of effort, that something good will come of it, then you're going to see that behavior repeated. Conversely, if they find out that your shoes are tasty or that the garbage is a lot of fun to dig in and they might find leftover chicken in there, that's also rewarding. So your dog is learning all the time, whether you're in the act of training them or not.
They're constantly seeking self-reward.
Totally.
Self-reward.
You know what?
In every situation.
Maybe that self-reward is an opportunity to greet another dog on leash. Yeah. Maybe that self-reward is an opportunity to bark like mad when you go to the park because they're not quite ready for that. Those behaviors are quite self-rewarding. So what are you going to do to make sure that your dog sees value in the reward that you're providing? So I think a big part of it is loading up the basics. Like teaching your dog that sitting in position is worth something. Yeah. Like teaching your dog that walking beside me is worth something. And a big problem that people have is that they just rush out into a complicated, challenging environment.
Before they've actually done enough reinforcement.
And there's no foundation. Think about you're building a pyramid here, and you need lots of repetition of those foundational exercises so that as you get more complicated, your training stays stable, that your dog's able to progress and succeed.
Yeah, I have a sort of a odd example of that. With it's happened with Beeline, Euchre, and Five Alive, our recent puppy, because I did this with all 3 puppies. But one of the rules that Ken and I have in our house is that we have several story house, and our dogs are not allowed to go upstairs without us. And so when they're puppies, but our bedroom's upstairs, so they come up when it's time to go to bed. We've taught them all to stop at the bottom of the staircase and we will reward them there. And then, well, right now, Five's really young, I carry him up the stairs because he's still, in my opinion, a little bit too young to do stairs. But what's really interesting, remember I was showing you this the other day, is because through the repetition of learning that sitting at the bottom of the stairs is rewarding, which that doesn't sound like a super fun thing to do, does it? Like, who wants to stop at the bottom of a staircase? But because every day for the last 2 months that we've had him, he's been rewarded at the bottom of the stairs. If I go anywhere near the bottom of our stairs, even if I have no intention of going upstairs, he runs to the bottom step, puts his feet on the step, and looks at me. It's like he cannot wait to go to that spot. So the point of this story is that if you are good about reinforcing something well enough, you can take a behavior that's really not that exciting and teach them to really want to do it. Now, what happens if your dog had the same value of stopping at the bottom of the stairs as keeping their leash loose, or sitting in front of you when you call them, or lying down on a bed for long periods of time, or getting their nails clipped, or whatever the situation is? But the issue is that a lot of people don't take the time to put enough value on some of those things so that the dog does say, I would rather do this because it's rewarding than do that. And that's sort of the point.
Yeah, and I think, you look at all the situations where people are like, oh, he just wants to go play with the other dogs. Or he just wants to do this thing. Well, what have you done to convince him otherwise? What have you done to show him that it's a sure thing? If you remain with me, if you check in with me, maybe, I mean, that's a little bit more advanced, but if you keep this leash loose, it's worth it. I'm going to give you something. That way, pulling is way less interesting. And maybe you can get out in a little bit more challenging environments earlier. But people are in such a hurry. As a new dog, I mean, I remember this. So, talk about adding value to something like a crate. And I'll tell you, crate training it changed my life dramatically when I introduced my 2-year-old dog to a crate. There's a million reasons why it's advantageous to use a crate. But I remember Deb McCann, who I think is watching the show tonight, your mom. We were talking about something, some challenge that my Black Lab was having, and she said, well, are you using a crate? And I thought, well, nah, she's 2 years old. I don't know, why would she need a crate? She's like, you're going to see. And then she explained to me some of the reasons why it was valuable. Within about, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, Deegan was choosing the crate. I started the crate training like the next day because I was a pretty enthusiastic student. But Deegan was choosing the crate, and she would go in there, when I wasn't in the room. And it was so remarkable for me to see that, because
She's
normally
17 years old now,
yeah,
and she still chooses to go into a crate.
Her crate. But you
obviously did a good job building value on it.
Well, yeah. Historically, I would be worried if she were in the kitchen, before the training experience, jumping up on the counters or literally chewing tennis balls, excuse me, to bits and pieces. Like she was just,
Why did you have tennis balls in your kitchen?
Just for her to carry around. See, these are the things. These are the things that I didn't realize before.
You were like, oh, dogs like tennis balls. So I'll leave her a tennis ball to play with. Yeah.
But now making better choices. But this is what we're talking about when we're talking about value. So number one thing we talked about tonight, timing. So important. Number two, value. Maybe your dog absolutely loves, maybe you got a sight hound. Maybe they love like fluffy tugs. And that's the thing that's going to unlock your recall. That's the thing that's going to change your dog's motivation entirely. You need to think about these things. And, you don't have to dig too deep to discover what your dog loves. It'll become pretty apparent when you try different things in your training. Timing and value. The next one is probably the most common mistake that I see with people while they're training their dog, and you need to say what you mean. And when I say this, I mean, until you're almost certain that your dog is going to be successful, don't test them. By not testing them, you're going to build value on whatever the action is that you want from them. But if you test them and you're not ready to follow up, you're completely undoing your training. We talked a minute ago about your dog's learning all the time, whether they're learning what you want them to learn or they're learning the opposite. They're learning. So if you start to build value on things like not listening, like not coming in out of the backyard when you shout for them at at midnight, it's just as valuable. They start to learn that, I'll come in a couple minutes. First, I'm going to eat these flowers, and then I might dig in the garden a little bit. But you need to be sure that you're not testing your dog too often, so you have to say what you mean. We're going to talk a little bit more about what you mean means in puppy training.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is, with puppy training specifically, we don't really want to be putting the puppies in a lot of situations where we would tell them to do something and then they would have an opportunity to not do it, because we believe that if they have a ton of repetitions of hearing something and then being shown or helped to do that thing successfully, that builds value for that thing, because they're always right. Who doesn't want to be right all the time? That's a fun way to be. So that's sort of the goal. So when in terms of say what you mean for a puppy,
I just super chat.
You just blew us out.
I did.
So when it comes to say what you mean for a puppy, you really want to be careful that you sort of evaluate before you ask your dog to do something. Do I think this is going to go successfully? So for example, maybe you've let your puppy maybe have too much freedom in the backyard, and you've gone inside and you want your puppy to come inside and they're distracted with something. If you were to call your puppy, do you think they would respond or not? And if you don't know the answer to that question, it probably means A, you have a puppy, and that's understandable, and B, you shouldn't be calling them then. So you don't want to be putting young dogs who haven't had a lot of training into situations where they can decide whether they want to listen. Now, flash forward to an older dog that maybe has had some training and they have had a lot of repetition of the come command or whatever the exercise is that you're working on. If I am putting my dog in a scenario where I am going to ask him to do something and there is an opportunity for him to choose or not choose, I need to be ready with a backup plan. So if my dog's not going to listen, do I have a long line on the dog so that I can follow through? Do I have, an opportunity to run away or to motivate my dog to listen so that I don't have a dog that says, haha, catch me if you can, I don't need to pay attention. Totally. So until you have reliability, you want to be careful that you're not putting yourself into situations where your dog has the opportunity to not listen. And then that's what we mean by avoid testing. I'm going to circle back to something I saw in the chat at some point, because I know we were talking about food.
Before you get there, Mary H., thanks for the super sticker.
Thank you, Mary. And blue. We love the blue too. That's awesome. I wanted to circle back to something that I read earlier about food, because we were talking a lot about food. The intention with our method of training anyways is that we don't want to have to use food in our training. I don't even want to have to put a leash on my dog eventually.
Yeah.
There's obviously certain situations that I will to keep the dog safe, but our dogs, when I take them for a walk on our property, we walk 7 dogs off leash. Everybody hangs around. They walk nicely with us. They boot over here, boot over there. They lie down when you yell at, like, they completely listen. I don't have treats on me. I don't have toys on me. They're listening because they like to listen.
But the only way to get there.
Yeah. But I just wanted to make sure you understand that there's a stepping stone. We need to start with a lot of help and a lot of guidance and a lot of food and a lot of reinforcement. And then we wean towards not having those things when the dog is ready. But there is a whole process of getting from point A to point B, and sometimes you move forward and then you got to move back and then you move forward because it's different for every single dog. A lot of it has to do with the person. So that is the overarching goal. This is literally what we work on in Puppy Essentials and Life Skills, is like how to get from point A to point B.
Well, and like what your specific needs are for your specific
What
dog.
Is your journey going to look like?
That's right.
Exactly. But
yeah, because the timing of that is just as important. Not just what you do, but when you do it for your dog, because every single dog is a little bit different, and this is what I learned, as I was coming up through the training. Let me know. I saw a lot of people saying like, oh, that's interesting. Or like, let me know. Drop in the chat. Say me if you've gotten value. We've only talked about 3 of the 5 things that you might need to change in your training, but drop me if you feel like you got value from those first 3 points. These are the life changers for me. Like, that's really gave me just a different perspective on how I should be thinking about my dog training, how I should be thinking about the choices I'm making. And this is the kind of stuff that, once the show's over, you can start like implementing. You can work on your down. You can start working on these things that are going to change. You start working on your building value for your leash walking training, building value for that loose leash. These I really like. I really enjoy our live streams for these opportunities because we can get pretty deep. Me. Yeah, absolutely. And that's it's. I'm excited that we're able to help you like that, Norma Nelson. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Norma.
One of the next things, I think a lot of people, actually, maybe you can just touch on life skills right now and what that might be for some of these guys. Yeah,
so our life skills program is an online program that we do to teach all of the basics. So we're going to work on things like coming when they're called, walking in a loose leash, being respectful around people, learning not to jump up, learning to have manners around you and your family, learning to view you as a leader and, somebody they should want to listen to and have fun with. But it really, that's just like the tip of it. That's just like the overarching of it. The cool thing about the online program is there's lots of videos that you can watch and repeat and really get the hang of things, but there's also a ton of instructor interaction so that you're not going through the journey on your own. Because I know a lot of people, our YouTube channel is awesome. We have so many great videos where you can learn so much about training your dogs. What?
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
But what it's missing.
Yeah. Is the okay, well, what happens if this goes wrong? Or what happens if I've done that and how do I get to this? So it's not a full program. It just shows you it just shows you YouTube. Yeah. It just shows you a little bit. What the programs do is they walk you through everything step by step. And then also you have instructor guidance. So if you run into a snag or if you're not sure what to do, if you're not sure whether you're ready to go on or how you should fix something, you can just ask one of us.
Or you just want to hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So you can, I think these guys, our moderators are probably dropping in the chat, Puppy Essentials and our Life Skills.
Yeah, so Puppy Essentials is for dogs under 5 months and Life Skills is for dogs over 5 months.
So Dan said double back on why toys shouldn't be left on the floor and how you categorize toys. That might be an important thing for us to mention, like why we wouldn't have a million toys out on the floor. I know someone mentioned all my dog's toys are out on the floor.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of reasons. Number one, it's dangerous. There's certain toys that are not meant to be chew toys. They're not meant for self-play. Things like tennis balls are very dangerous if dogs consume it. They're also horrible for your dog's teeth. Yeah. If they're, literally gives me nails on a chalkboard just thinking about that. But it also, it teaches your dogs that, there isn't a lot of value in playing with you with toys. We have basically two two directions of toys. We have interactive toys, which we have only that we play with our dogs with. So we would play fetch. We would use them for training. We would play tug games, all kinds of things. And then when we were not doing those things, those toys would go away. And the things that our dogs have access to all of the time are chew toys. And that would be like bones that they can chew on. I'm not going to get into all the different bones because we have certain things that we would give and not give. Kongs, nothing that is squeaky or stuffed or has threads that could be pulled off. Nothing like that. They are all things that you could walk away and be completely confident that your dog wasn't going to ingest or hurt themselves in any way. And our dogs, they get access to those toys 24/7. They're in their crates. They're in our kitchen. They're in our living room. We step on nylon bones constantly in our house. Our dogs always have access to something to chew, but they do not get access to the fuzzy tug toys. They don't get access to the tennis balls. They don't get access to the Frisbees, any of those things. But I'll tell you, if we pull one of those fuzzy tuggers out of our bags, our dogs are like, whoa, we're about to do training. We're about to do something fun, and it changes the dog's mindset. So you need to make sure that you have some rules laid out. Dogs don't need a million toys. They can have like 2 or 3. Give them a few days to play with those ones, and then pick them up, put another couple down, give them a couple days, and then put the first 3 down. You don't have to go and buy a million toys. Dogs don't care.
But you can.
You can if you want to,
In
but
fact,
it's not necessary.
Our McCann Dogs Tug Toys are pretty awesome. This is a little meta, but think about the thing we mentioned like 2 points ago when we talked about value. How do you assign value? How do you understand what your dog makes valuable? Did you hear what Kayl was talking about there? She's talking about limiting the dog's access to a certain toy, which you should do, the interactive toys, because they're not safe. But by doing that, it means that the only experience your dog has with that toy is very engaging.
Yeah.
When we talk about using the McCann method, it is all about motivating your dog to do whatever you want, to do the things that allow you to go on walks and to allow you to get into, busy environments. But figuring out how to hack the code, to teach your dog that these things are really valuable. So when I bring them out, they're a lot of fun. Also, I mentioned earlier with the sighthounds, maybe a fuzzy, fluffy tug toy of some kind is the thing you need to unlock that recall to get like higher motivation, so that ending is like super enthusiastic. That's exactly what Kayl's talking about. You can shift the value on some things by limiting your dog's access to it, and the only experience that they get is when they're really excited, really motivated. Yeah. Keep that in mind. A lot of people will say something like, well, my dog does this great at home, but when I get out on the street, it's an entirely different scenario. Or, what? The other angle to this point is, especially when you have a young dog, a puppy or a new dog in your household, I would say there's probably, 20 natural training opportunities that you can have every single day that will change your relationship with that dog. Every single day. And it doesn't take any more time, and it doesn't, require any more effort. You're already doing it. Let's talk a little bit about what natural training opportunities you have, like in the beginning learning phase, and then maybe we can talk a little bit more about like what the bridge is like to real world.
Yeah, I think you sort of have to think of it this way. When you have a young dog, you need to have an idea of how your ideal dog would behave. If you were making breakfast in the morning, or if you were watching TV at night, or if you were helping your kids with homework, or whatever you're doing, what would you prefer your dog do? What's your ideal dog? What behavior would they be doing? And then think about the fact that when you get a puppy, they're not going to do that. In fact, they're probably going to do the opposite to whatever your ideal is.
The first week they might do that, and then for the rest of the time they won't do that.
That's right. So when we talk about natural training situations, they're natural in the fact that they're already things you're gonna make yourself breakfast or coffee every single morning. You're going to let your puppy out of their crate and out for a pee multiple times a day. You're gonna make dinner most every day. So all these things are coming up. But what happens is people get so busy in what they're doing that they're not paying attention to the dog. And then instead of the dog learning to do something great in that scenario, they're learning, when mom's cooking dinner, she's not paying attention to me, so that's when I can go up to the bathroom and go through the garbage. Or I can go into the kids' room and steal all the toys, because they're not being shown in this moment, I would rather you do this. So to speak about it generally, you want to think about all of the interactions that you have with your dog, and in the early stages, showing and teaching them what you want them to do. It's like that thing I said with 5, going upstairs. I taught him a routine of bedtime. We do the same thing every single night, and it makes him so easy to manage. He knows the drill. He knows when I open the front door that he's going to go onto our step before going on down our driveway, and he's going to wait for me to hook his long line on. Why does he know that? Because from 8.5 weeks old, when he came home, I would have my treats out on his nose, and I'd be luring him into a sit, hooking his line on, rewarding him in the sit, releasing him. Before he even knew what sit meant, before he knew what any of it is, I was showing him the process of, when we do this, buddy, this is what I want you to do. And because, again, he was being reinforced for that, I now have a 4-month-old puppy that automatically sits and waits to get his long line on. It's not because I'm something amazing. It's because it's a simple process that I showed him to do. So you want to try to think about how you can set up your everyday interaction with your puppy and show them what they should do to be right. Don't wait for them to do something wrong, and then now you have to be upset with them or frustrated with them or annoyed with them or discipline them, when you could have maybe changed the narrative and managed your dog a little bit better.
When you change the way you think about your training, you quickly change the results.
Yeah.
So you've probably all heard at some point that, like, oh, you can't let the dog go through the doorway before you because then you're not the alpha. Forget that.
Yeah.
It's not about that. But what if you focused on the idea that your dog wants to go outside, you're going to go outside with them? What if, when they get the right age, that you ask for a sit before you open any door? It's that simple. You know, you guys, you're going to want to go outside. All you ask for is a little sit. And they sit in at your side, and then you can open the door. Okay, out we go. It's a natural training opportunity that's going to happen like multiple times a day when you have a dog in training. But by looking at it, understanding that I'm quickly showing my dog that all they have to do is put in a little bit of effort, just a little bit of work, and they're going to get something that they want. They're going to start to learn that problem solving. Yeah. You want them to learn that idea that if I put in a little bit of effort, I give them a little bit of what they want, then I get something I want. Another example is not crashing out of the crate. It's so simple. You know, you just don't allow your dog to come bursting out of the crate. We have a video on that very specifically. You just don't let them come crashing through. That little bit of effort translates into them like, okay, a little bit of self-control, I do a little bit of work, and then I get what I want. Maybe putting the food bowl down. Right? Putting the food bowl down.
Great one.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that we do a couple times a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do that a lot, actually, because I remember when I first started doing some training with Five Alive, often I would train him for his breakfast or his dinner. So I would have his food bowl that would have all his kibble in it. And there was points where I would put it down. So I would sit on the kitchen floor and I'd put it down beside me so that I could reach for it easily. And instead of wanting to listen to what I was wanting him to do, all he wanted to do was dive over my lap and frantically eat the kibble out of the bowl.
Adorable.
It was a little bit obnoxious, but he's just so cute. Yeah. So anyways, but he needed to learn that, you know, that's not going to earn you the reward. Sitting calmly will cause me to go into your food bowl and give you the food. Yeah. So by having the leash on and just, you know, stopping him from doing that, getting him doing what I'm wanting him to do, and then rewarding him that way, you know, I can put a food bowl down on the floor and he doesn't even think about going into it because he understands that's not where the value is created. He sees that and he'll offer a sit because of how the process started. So, you know, you can teach your dog to do anything if you give them the good information. If you give them good information, and
it's never too late,
and you're consistent about it.
They're never too stubborn. You know, this is about understanding the timing, the value, the saying what you mean. You know, if they're you know, chewing on something, they're getting into your shoes. You know, telling them to leave it and redirecting them away with the leash is following through, saying what you mean. It's the thing. You know, I see people say like, "Oh, my dog's so stubborn." That's what I thought too. I can totally empathize. I know exactly how you feel, but I will tell you,
they're not stubborn.
My eyes were open. I was the one that was stubborn. I was stubborn for not believing that she could do better. And once I understood that, it was incredible. I mean, that's why I'm sitting here in front of you, is because of like the incredible transformation. I was going to mention the next, someone asked earlier about when our next show is, next live stream show. And then I realized you're headed to the national championships.
Do we have one more before I go or not?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Kayl's headed to the national championships of dog agility with Beeline.
I'm really excited.
Yeah, to represent Canada. She is, she's no stranger to the world championships. 21-time world champion with 5 different dogs.
Yeah.
With 5 different dogs.
Yeah,
it's
5
amazing.
dogs.
She would never tell you guys. And I'll probably hear about this after. But she's going with Beeline. So I'm not totally sure. When the next show is. But, and actually, you know what I just thought of is that if these guys are following Five's puppy series, they may actually get to see him go from like first day home all the way out to national championships of dog agility.
That's the goal.
That's pretty cool.
That's the goal, but I'm not sure.
It's a neat story.
You never know what will happen, but I'm going to tell you now, he's a rock star.
He is. He really is.
He is a rock star.
He's such a smart little dog and what a fun puppy to work with.
Absolutely, yeah. Although I also think Bee's a rock star as well.
Yeah.
I think all the dogs are rock stars. I love them.
She's a different kind of rock star. I don't know, maybe the same kind of rock star.
Well, she's more quirky.
Yeah.
Like she's more like weird.
Yeah, higher energy.
Yeah.
Less of an off switch.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, somebody's asking about watching the agility. If you guys follow us on Instagram, McCann Dogs Instagram, we also have an agility Instagram. Go ahead and plug my own Instagram channel here.
We also have an agility YouTube channel.
I don't post it on it very often though. Oh. If you want to see regular stuff, if you follow McCann Dogs Agility, I actually post weekly about all my training that I'm doing to prepare to go away. And then while I'm away, I'll probably post on stories and things like that. So you can, if you care, if you like agility, you would like that. It's the flashy stuff. It's not the basics. So if you like flashy stuff, you'll like it.
So maybe you don't like agility, but you want to stop your dog from dragging you down the street, then we're going to talk about the next mistake that people are commonly making. We talked about timing. We talked about value. Say what you mean. That's really important. Mm-hmm. And natural training opportunities that you can take advantage of. But the next thing we absolutely have to talk about is proofing. Understanding that there's a difference between training and testing and proofing.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about what proofing can mean when it comes to like end result of a skill.
Yeah. So we believe a lot in proofing a skill because sometimes people think that their dog like is really good at something, but they're only good at it like in certain situations. And sometimes it goes back to what we said earlier about like they're great at it if you're in the kitchen and you're getting something out of the fridge, or they're great at it if you're in the backyard and there's like nothing going on. So what we want to do is we want to train our dogs to do something, and then we want to go through an entire proofing phase to make sure our dogs can do that thing no matter what. So we can take them to different places. They'll still come when they're called. We can get them around new people and new dogs. They'll still not pull on their leash. So they really learn how to have reliable skills, and that's done through proofing our dogs. And that could be by adding different types of distractions. And in the early stages, we would start with like really low distractions. So it was easy for the dog to be successful. And then we would work up to something higher. We would proof something by adding distance. So, can my dog lay on a bed calmly? And if I'm standing right in front of them, feeding them, well, yeah, of course they can. But can they lay on a bed when I'm across the kitchen, getting something out of the stove, or when I'm letting the Amazon guy drop a package off, or whatever the situation might be? I'm not right beside the dog. Yeah. Can they still do it then? Duration is another thing that we proof. So again, it's not very helpful to us if our dogs will only do something for like 5 or 10 seconds at a time, and then they're off doing their own thing. We want to look for longevity. Our dogs need to respond to whatever that thing is until we say, okay, you don't need to do that anymore. So we are in charge of how long they do it. And I know it might be coming off as a little bit like drill sergeant-y, but that's not what I'm getting at here. What we're looking for is reliability, so that that thing that we're teaching our dog to do, our dog can do it all the time. And the way that you accomplish that is by proofing the exercise when you're doing the teaching phase.
Yeah, I know you always sort of like, you say like, oh, we're not trying to be a drill sergeant, but I mean, I don't hate that language.
You got to be like that, though.
Sometimes, yeah. I get that a drill sergeant.
We're not trying to be our dog's buddy.
That's right. Well, you just need to be a great leader.
Yeah. And you can do that without being.
Yeah, totally.
Like
totally.
Super.
Yeah, like heavy-handed and like, hey, you got to lie down, because that's useless.
Yeah, but you also can't be like, wishy-washy baby puppy. Totally. Can you please listen to me?
Yeah,
you have to be right down the middle. You need to be cool and calm and collected and get stuff done.
Yeah. Talking about proofing, that also comes like locations. Maybe it's like your position. You talked about distance, duration. I mean, was there any other situations where you think proofing is the most? So here's a proofing challenge I would set up for like a dog walking on leash. I might go to the park, and I actually did this with Deegan, and I would have my other dogs running and maybe for you it's like another person walking their dog on the other side of the fence in the ball diamond, and I would walk up and down with her, and I would figure out like how close can I get before I totally lose her? How close can I get before she's just not successful? She's so focused on that distraction. And I started to think of proofing, and we talk about this, and we actually show this in a couple of videos of like concentric circles or like 3 zones. Yeah. So like maybe the first zone, like if your dog's on this side, and the red zone is so close that your dog is absolutely going to fail. The yellow zone, which is like the middle part, maybe it's like, let's say it's 20 feet away, and your dog, you're not sure.
And the zones could change depending on what you're working on.
Hopefully they will change for sure. But let's say that middle zone is like, you're not too sure. They might be successful, but you don't know. And then the green zone, or the farthest away, is your dog's absolutely going to be right. You're kind of dipping into that yellow zone now and again, like going in a little bit closer. And maybe you walk a little faster because you know that gets a little bit more of your dog's attention, and you can go a little bit deeper, and you will start to see those zones shrink. Yeah. But if you go out and you've worked your butt off for the last hour in training class or the last week and a half, and then you go downtown and you allow your dog to pull because they just can't help themselves, it really sets you back. It really sets you back. I really want you to focus on proofing. Like maybe you don't have to take your dog downtown. Maybe you decide to get up 25 minutes earlier and walk them in a situation where they're going to be successful, where you can practice, you can create that distance, and then they don't go downtown with you. This is what I really want people to sort of change the way they see their dog training experience.
For a little while, you need to put your dog's training before everything else. Yeah. And if you do that, you're going to have better results. If you choose, just to like, I don't have time for this right now, I'm just not going to deal with it because it's like, that's just what's easy in the moment. It's going to take longer for you. Absolutely. Every time I get a puppy, I think like, oh my gosh, I forget. It's so much work. Even as someone who's I'm super experienced, I know how to do this. I know how to do it really well. Yeah. It's still, oh my gosh, this is so much work. But I know that if I work my butt off to give Five Alive, our young puppy, all of this focus and all of this training right now while he's young, that we are going to be able to coast along and have the most enjoyable relationship with him. I'm already feeling the results of that after only having him for a short time home because of the information. So you have to make sure that you're putting your dog's training first. You don't just let them pull you down or put them in situations where it's easy just to let them go to the off-leash park and let them run around for 2 hours while you sit and text on your phone and drink a coffee. That drives me absolutely bananas. It does nothing for your relationship. Yes, it tires the dog out, but like, where were you in all of this situation? What does that do for you? So it's a lot of work in the early stages, but it's so worth it in the end.
Absolutely. Sheila with the super sticker. Did I toot for her? I don't think so. Sheila says, good luck, Kayl. Thank you and McCann Dogs. You are the best.
Also thank mentions, you,
Sheila. Just said I will be a first-time pet mom. Just small advice for the first-timer.
Yay.
Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, and as Kayl mentioned,
that's awesome.
It's a challenge, but knowing that it's a challenge when you get into it helps you to make better choices. And
also, when you know what to do with the puppy and how to respond to things and how to work through things, it's a lot less frustrating. Yeah. And honestly,
missing the mistakes, avoiding the mistakes, that's really how you can supercharge that training. Because if your dog doesn't learn the bad stuff, they're only getting the great information. So doing things like having great timing, making sure that they understand that you provide value, saying what you mean and mean what you say, understanding why the natural training opportunities work, and then proofing, making sure that you're, giving your dog all sorts of, challenges along the way in your training. And I love that explanation.
I should say too that yes, I just said training is so much work and it's a lot, but it's also It's so much fun. I personally love the puppy training phase. Like, how many times am I like, hun, come and see what Five can do now. Like, watch this. He's so smart. Like, it's so fun to do, especially if you kind of have a better idea of what you're supposed to do, which, you know, if you have help with the videos or instructors or whatever the situation might be, it's not as painful as it seems. It is exhausting. It's a lot of work, but it's also really, really rewarding.
Genevieve says, thank you for the super chat. What are your thoughts on socializing your puppy with other dogs before getting all vaccines? P.S. We're getting our pup on Sunday.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Our thoughts on socializing puppies before they get vaccinated is that you shouldn't do that. It's not safe. In fact, before they're vaccinated, you should really try to avoid any high concentrate areas where a lot of dogs have been or gone to the bathroom or things like that. You know, puppies do have a little bit of leftover, what's the word, call it, from their mom?
Immunity.
Immunity from their mom, but it's really not enough to really keep your dog safe. So you do want to be very careful in the early stages. Wait till your puppy is vaccinated before you're doing that. Not that you need to keep them like cooped up in the house or anything. Go out and do stuff with them, but just keep them away from other dogs. But really the big things, and we actually have a lot of videos on socialization and this topic. I would encourage you to maybe search and watch them. But the big thing for us is when you have a young puppy, the socialization that you should be doing should be all about building relationship with you and the puppy. Interaction and playing with other puppies should really be at the bottom of the priority list, because you need to be building a solid bond and a relationship with one another. And sometimes if dogs think that life is just the best thing, playing with other dogs all the time. Like, to give you an example, we have 6 dogs, and then we have 5 alive, who is our 7th dog. And just now, after like 2-3 months of having him home, is he just now starting to have a little bit of very controlled interaction with our other dogs. He's been separated from our other dogs because we are building a lot of value and interaction. And literally I told Ken today, he left the other dogs without being asked to come and seek me out today to play with me and to get a reward. So that shows me that my relationship work is working. Yeah. So don't be in a big rush. Exposure is much more important than puppy socialization with other dogs.
Yeah. Did you sort of going through some of the stuff that's happened on the chat or in the on the show? But did you talk about when you went in the field with the dogs and the response that the puppy had?
Well, yeah, I just kind of said that at the end. Like I let him go on.
I think that's really important.
Yeah, I let him go on a walk around our property today, and he had a long line on, and I've been taking him all by himself, so no distractions for weeks now, and practicing recalls and all kinds of stuff. And so today, I thought, I'm going to take him with my other dog. So we went on the long line. But
this is the first time.
Yeah.
He's never, we don't allow our dogs to run free together.
No, because I don't want him to be in a scenario where he's just going to run in the fields and chase the other dogs and not respond to me.
Value. If Kayl can't say what she means and follow up, redirecting the puppy and working on training, then she has to make sure that the puppy doesn't see a lot of value in chasing the other dogs.
Yeah, I have high expectations. If I call his name, even though he's 4.5 months old, if I call his name, I expect him
every time
to come back to me every single time. Yeah. Therefore, I'm not going to put him in a scenario where I think, is he going to respond to me or is he not? Now I've been training a lot, so I felt very comfortable in that moment that he was going to respond. And there was lots of times that I didn't even have to call him. He just ran to me. Now, keep in mind, those of you with 4.5-month-old puppies out there, you shouldn't go out and do what I'm doing. Keep him. It's a little different. I don't want you to get hung up on the age. I want you to get hung on, my 4.5-month-old puppy has had 10, 20, 100 times more repetitions of training something than the average dog. So his process of learning is going to be a lot faster. So don't get stuck on the age. You need to get stuck on the progressions and the repetition.
Yeah, that's a really important point. That might be the 6th common training mistake that people make, is they discount their dog's ability, or they move too quickly for their dog based on the age, amount of weeks they've been on the earth, or their breed. They'll discount you know what? It's a Cairn Terrier. He's not going to do this. And then we have an amazing terrier in the next class class and they're like, oh, geez, well, maybe I should work a little bit
litter
harder.
mate.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
We see that all the time.
But, when you call Five's name, you want him to want to turn around.
Yeah.
It's not like I expect him to turn every time. That's right. But I expect him to want to turn around.
Yeah, his attitude's not like, oh, man, I have to go back to her. He's like,
that's what guys,
this is awesome.
That's what I didn't understand. That's what these guys, that's what they need to see, that you can teach the dog to love doing whatever you ask of it. It's not like you have this little robot that's like, fine, I'll come inside. You have a dog that's like, oh, there's that word. Here I come in, that kind of thing. It really changes so much. And, understanding how to make sure that you remove all the bad information as much as you can. And then you're giving them the good information quickly builds that motivation for them. It's such a huge part of your training experience.
Yeah, there was really a lot of great questions on the chat tonight, which I think is awesome. And I know that I recognized some students' names, which was great, but I also saw a lot of new names. So if you guys are interested in training, we would love to have you join us for classes. Like I said, our online programs are awesome, and they're going to fill in all the blanks. So when you get stuck on something and your dog is not responding to their name, or they're choosing things other than you, we can get you on the right track. We can turn things around for you really easily.
For sure. A huge thank you to you guys for joining us here in the train station tonight. A big thank you to our moderators, Instructor Robbie, Instructor Alexis, Spot the Bot, and Dan, the moderator man. Now, the train station is on a bi-weekly schedule, as we've just established. We know that the next show will be when?
May.
Let me think. What time will it be? Oh, that's right. It's gonna be May.
We do these live streams to educate you, but more importantly, to motivate you. You can have the dog that you've always wanted, but it's just going to take you a little bit of work.
I would know, because I was just like you. Long before I became a dog trainer, I was a frustrated dog owner, but the skills that I learned at McCann's changed my life. Now, we have hundreds of videos here on our YouTube channel to help you to have a well-behaved four-legged family member.
But if you want someone to guide you through the dog training process, then you should check out our Puppy Essentials program for puppies under 6 months. If your dog is over 6 months, then you could join our Life Skills program, and our instructors are going to help to make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible in a really supportive environment.
Now, all of the knowledge about dog training in the world won't help you to be successful unless you get up and you start training. The real question is, what are you going to train next?
Happy training.